Hey everybody, this is Elizabeth Sandoz. Welcome back to season 2. I'm sure you're waiting to hear this is Liz, but things are a little bit different this season. We're going to be focusing on Miraculous Mamas, and I'm going to be bringing on special co-hosts, educators, and more of your birth stories just to share and empower each other. We just really want to empower women to own your miraculousness. You are a miracle worker. And there's so many of us that have been left in the dust, looked over. You've changed your 10th dirty diaper of the day without anyone saying thank you. You're in it. And we just want to empower you to continue on, that you are noticed, that we are grateful for you. You are a miracle worker. And that's why we're so excited to be bringing you more of your stories, and then educators who are just going to help us better ourselves in our journey. And just some really fun topics. We're going to laugh a lot. It's going to be tons of fun. We're also launching a Patreon. It's under Elizabeth Joy. If you go to patreon.com/miraculousmamas, that's where we're going to be drawing from a lot of the subscribers for the birth stories. You're going to get a weekly mantra to just help you continue on in your journey. And then we're also going to be diving into some other topics that are a little bit deeper, such as sex and the awkward questions that maybe you don't want to ask, but we have people on there who do. So you're going to get a lot of answers and a lot of good information. The wonderful thing about the Patreon, though, is your subscriptions matter, because half of the proceeds every single month are going to be going to women in need. We already have a few nonprofits lined up, but if there's something that you're passionate about that is going to help women around the world, please let me know. I'm just so excited to launch that and to take this thing global and just be empowering women around the world. And that just really is what ties us all together. I'm so excited for today's episode. But before that, Jade and Carly got an opportunity to do something else. So look out for what they're doing. We love and support them. I know that they're going to be coming out with something very, very soon for everyone. But today I am bringing on someone that I just really look up to. It's January Harshe. She is just a powerhouse of a woman. She has so much wisdom and tons of information for us. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's episode. All right, guys, we have January Harshe here with us, who is the mother of 6. So she knows firsthand how differently that birth experiences can go. She founded Birth Without Fear in 2010, and it has expanded so huge that she's had to branch out in so many different ways and reach so many people, that community is just such an awesome community. And we're going to go into some of the other ways that has expanded. But she also just wrote a book, Birth Without Fear, that comes out really soon. And I'm fangirling a little bit right now because I love her. So thank you so much for coming on here.
I'm the one that's honored that you asked me to be on your podcast. So thank you very much.
Yeah, of course. Well, and also for reference, for those of you listening, today's Valentine's Day. So she took time out of her Valentine's Day to come on here and talk with me. And I saw the photo that you just posted with your daughters.
Yes.
That was amazing.
Yeah, that was on my personal Instagram. And yesterday, I just was feeling the burnout. The burnout is real, whether you're working or you're a parent or both or whatever. And I felt that yesterday. And so I told my girls, let's just go out. Let's go out for the afternoon and leave the boys and the youngest at home. And we did. We had a great time. And it was neat. And it's nice to take a picture that's not a selfie.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like we live in an age where it's almost weird to stop and ask somebody to take your photo. You know?
Right.
So, yeah. So it was really, really wonderful. So that was, Valentine's Day for me is not a big deal as far as the commercialization of it. I don't, Brandon and I, and that's my husband, we've been together for 20 years. So, you show love in so many little ways that probably are not Instagrammable,
right?
Every single day. And so I just wanted to focus on that self-love and the love of my children. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, and you hashtagged on their self-love generation.
Yeah, that's something that I started a few years ago. I was just thinking about it, and I don't know if it was usually when I'm doing a post or I'm in the bath, I get ideas. And so I don't know which one it was, but I just thought about how every generation, you have millennials and iGen and this gen, and every generation is given a different title. And I was just thinking about it, and I thought, gosh, I just want to raise a self-love generation, a generation who doesn't have to do the amount of intense work we're having to do just to not be jerks to ourselves and our own minds. We're all working. So there's a movement for a reason, because we're all working to love ourselves despite wherever we come from, whatever we see, whatever we watch. And I want to raise a generation of children who are strong and confident and love themselves in all of their variations of normal or uniqueness, as I like to say. Yeah. And so that's where that came from.
Yeah, that's such an important message. And I think, like you're saying, just this day and age, all the social media stuff and everything, it's so easy to compare. And you only see what people choose to show you, and you could rip yourself apart just scrolling through that,
Oh, easily, which is why I try to be as authentic and open as I can in my social media space, because I'm human and imperfect, and we all are. And the more we connect with those parts of each other, I think the more compassion we can have for ourselves and each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. All right, I want to take a second just to tell you guys about something that has been a lifesaver for me in these last couple weeks before my wedding, and it is Instacart. I have not had time to go to the grocery store at all, and that is why I love Instacart. The groceries are delivered in as little as 1 hour, or you pick a time that works for you. You get exclusive coupons you save money on, and they're available at your favorite stores. Also, you don't have to sit in traffic or look for parking. I know that it's been extremely cold here in Chicago, so that's another bonus of this. And I just haven't had time to grocery shop, and sometimes I just need a couple of things, and Instacart has saved me. How it works is that you get the app, or you can go to instacart.com and shop the groceries. Your shopper gathers them with care by selecting excellent produce and contacting you if necessary, and then they deliver it. Your groceries will arrive in as little as 1 hour again, and they help keep the hot items hot and the cold items cold. So try Instacart and get $10 off your first order. To get this limited time offer, go to instacart.com or download the mobile app and enter my promo code BABIES10 at the checkout. That's $10 off your first order today at instacart.com or through the mobile app. And don't forget to enter my code BABIES10 for $10 off. Instacart.com through the mobile app with my code BABIES10 at checkout. So for your book, Birth Without Fear, the part that it says on it says a judgment-free guide to taking charge of your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum.
Yes, I have it right here.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, exactly. All 6 of my pregnancies and births and postpartum were very different. Mm-hmm. And I read every book I could get my hand on, every birth story I could get my hand on, probably like many of your listeners are right now. And there was not a book that I felt covered all those variations of normal. So it's basically the book I wish I had.
Yeah.
People tell me, oh, I wish this book came out before I had my first 2 kids. I'm like, me too. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it is a very judgment-free, let me hold your hand. There's so many different variations of normal book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like that's something, working as a doula, I get so many stereotypes. People are always like, oh, you're a doula. Oh, I'm not having a home birth. I'm like, great. Like, most of my clients don't, or they're like, oh, I'm going to have drugs. I'm like, great. Like I still have a role in that. And so I feel like what's the hard thing with the birthing community and so many of the movements out there that are so positive, they still kind of almost downplay some women's experiences who things didn't go as planned. Your birth plan usually doesn't, and then they end up feeling guilty, or I wanted to be a part of that group and now I'm not.
Right. Well, and birth is one of the most unpredictable experiences we'll ever have. Mm-hmm. It's so wonderful to plan for it and to prepare for it, because it gives you the opportunity to do research and to find out what your different options are and to open up conversations with your care provider. But a birth plan is really, it comes down to like birth preferences and birth philosophy, because if and when things change, you want everyone to be on the same page of that philosophy, and those preferences. And it's not, to me, it should not be very complicated to support birthing people like through this process. This should not be a complicated thing. It's not hard or difficult to support another human being, but we're finding ourselves in a situation where we're having options taken away, and we receive a lot of shameful care, and we aren't having that basic human kindness and support and respect. And that's really sad. And I think that's what so many of us are trying to change. We're trying to shift that conversation and that base expectation of good care. So no matter how you birth your baby, and that's kind of something that I was concerned about with our book is, and I talked about this with my editorial team, is when people see it, I don't want them to think it's only about natural childbirth. Because it's not. I've had 3 cesareans and 3 VBACs. So, I've experienced it all, and I don't regret any of it. And, so when we wrote this book, it was, how do we hold space for all of these different kinds of birth experiences? So, I've talked to thousands and thousands of women, and rarely, 99.9% of the time, the way a woman feels about her birth experience has nothing to do with how her baby came out.
Right.
Everything to do with how she was treated in the process. So if you have a birth that you weren't planning for or you didn't expect, the more ownership we get over the decisions that were made when things went left when we were planning to go right, the less of that guilt and that frustration or trauma, those kind of things happen. So.
And that's also probably where some of another tent under Birth Without Fear is the Taking Back Postpartum comes in too.
Right. Yeah. So I started Take Back Postpartum right at the end of my last pregnancy 4 years ago, because I had been talking about preparing for postpartum on Birth Without Fear Instagram. And one of our followers was like, January, have you looked under that hashtag? And I was like, no. Do I want to look under that hashtag? Probably not. But I did. And it was all bounce back stuff, pills, lotions, creams, kind of thing. And it had nothing to do with the realities and the variations of postpartum. And I was post dates with my 6th baby, and it pissed me off.
Yeah.
It made me really mad. I was so frustrated. I'm like, this is not what we go through. This is not what should be represented under hashtag postpartum. And so I did a blog post about it, and I posted on Birth Without Fear, we need to take back postpartum. And there was such a need for that conversation that I started another Instagram or movement, Take Back Postpartum. And that's the one that always gets all the media attention too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think because self-love is such a big, movement in all forms of media, social, mainstream, everything. So it's a lot about, accepting our bodies, but also just the messy chaos, normalness, ebb and flow, finding a new normal of postpartum. So that's why I started that.
Yeah, that is such a powerful message. And it is really hard because it goes back to that people are only showing what they want you to show, and they're doing ads for different companies, and they're like, look how I got my postpartum body and all these different things. And it's like,
I know. And we're I don't want to say fighting, but we really are. We're fighting this norm that's put out in our world, and it's just not most people's norm.
Right.
But it's interesting because I think we have to be careful. We can't, like you said, you've noticed that sometimes by speaking up and fighting for certain rights or conversation, we start to downplay others. And I recently posted a smaller mama on Take Back Postpartum and what her postpartum was like. And she wanted to do her hair and wanted to do her makeup. And it was heavily criticized. And I was like, wait a minute, like, what are we doing here? If we want to embrace all these parts of postpartum birth motherhood, we can't sit here and judge another side of it as well. So in true fashion of myself, I turned off comments, but
you have to though.
Yeah, it really made me sit back and think, like, we have to be careful, and it's okay to make space for everyone. And I tried to do that in the Birth Without Fear book. And the book is, a third of it is about pregnancy, a third is about birth, and a third of the book is postpartum.
Yeah.
Because we need to have a conversation about all that, not just the birth plans, not just how to set up your birth space. We need to be discussing everything through. And there's a lot of self-love and self-care woven through every chapter because it's so important through the entire process.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I feel like the fourth trimester is something that isn't really talked about as much. It's people just planning, preparing.
Yeah, it's talked about a lot more than it ever has been.
Yeah, which is great.
But still, you're right. Like everyone is now, we've opened up this conversation for birth, right? We've been doing our job there, as doulas and care providers and women and families just talking about this, and everyone's preparing for their births to have a good birth experience, no matter what that birth looks like for you. But then what, right? Mm-hmm. Like birth it's an event. It's an event that's unpredictable, and then it happens, and then it's the rest of your life as a parent,
right.
And you're right. We're not having that conversation enough, because that's the real work and the messiness really begins. And I think many of us find ourselves feeling incredibly lonely in that part of this journey, and we're afraid to speak up for good reason.
Right.
There is a lot of judgment and there is a lot of misunderstanding, and our society and culture do not support the new parents and the family unit. Like only we can do that ourselves and within our communities, because it's not how our society is set up right now. So it's really scary and lonely and messy. And we do need to keep having that conversation, because the more of our voices we add to it, the more we can kind of combat what is the norm, in air quotes, norm right now, not the norm. So.
Right. No, absolutely. I think that's so awesome. That's why that take back postpartum is so important. All right, guys, I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite sponsors, and that is Liquid IV. That's because when I'm super busy, I do not drink enough water. And that is why I love Liquid IV, because they have saved me. Right now it's cold and flu season. I'm trying to stay properly hydrated. Also, with a lot of travel plans coming up, I already have my bag packed with Liquid IV in it. It's not your average electrolyte drink mix. It uses cellular transport technology. It's a specific ratio, sodium and potassium, and when it mixes with 16 ounces of water, it helps your body absorb more of the water and nutrients that you drink directly into your bloodstream. It's non-GMO, it has clean ingredients, it's vegan, free of gluten, dairy, and soy. It's a healthy alternative to the traditional sports drinks, and it can provide the same hydration as drinking 2 to 3 bottles of water. It also contains 5 essential vitamins, including vitamin C and potassium. Also, you guys know one of my favorite things about Liquid IV is that they donate 1 serving to people in need around the world for every order placed. And I love supporting companies that support others. So Liquid IV is the fastest growing hydration brand, and you can find them everywhere, even Costco. You can find them at all of Costco's nationwide. I love Liquid IV. I know that you will too. Right now, my listeners get 20% off at liquidiv.com when you use my code BABES at checkout. That's 20% off anything that you order on Liquid IV's website. Go to liquidiv.com and enter my promo code BABES to get your savings and start getting better hydration. That's liquidiv.com, promo code BABES. Don't wait. Get hydrated today. We just had a conversation within the community because we have a Facebook group and stuff, and a lady was sharing on there how hurt she had felt because somebody had posted, look at the moms whose hair's not done and their nails aren't done. Those are the women who really love their children. And this lady was like, no, she was like, I don't feel this way at all. Like getting my nails done is a way that I self-care for myself. That it's an hour, like every couple weeks I get a takeaway from my kids just to relax, and it feels good, and it's there tends to be so much judgment in that area, and it's hard.
I feel like we're all doing our best.
Right.
And our best is going to be different depending on what day it is,
right.
what season we're in. I mean, my best when I had 4 kids, was pregnant with my 5th, and we were homeless, was not anywhere near what my best would be right now, So it's really easy for us to judge, and it's really easy to say, what would be a better representation is to have the mom with the crazy hair and the coffee cup and the, kids crawling on her, and then the mom dropping her kids off at school and, doing whatever work she wants to do or whatever, and side by side, and saying both of these moms love their children so much and they're doing things their way, like a very you do you boo philosophy, right?
Right.
Like neither one is right and neither one is wrong. And those moms may switch places at some point too. It really depends on how old your kids are, what's going on, in your life. And it's going to look different all the time. And we don't need to negate one's experience because we're trying to uplift another's. Right.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. So, you had mentioned like this book is something you wish that you had. Will you just share like a little bit of your journey with us?
Yeah. With my pregnancy and births.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So my first child, I planned for a birth center birth, and she's 15. This is 15 years ago, and she was breech. And I knew something was off and everyone thought I was wrong. And so I asked for an ultrasound, and sure enough, mama's instincts were right. Baby was breech. And she was nice and stuck. We did everything to turn her. And so I ended up transferring care, and I had a very supportive, positive cesarean birth experience.
Yeah.
And then with my second, I planned a home birth VBAC. And my care was very mismanaged, actually. And I got a fever and I got really sick. And after a few days labor at home, my husband took me to the hospital, and I transferred to the hospital, and I did end up having a very non-supportive traumatic cesarean birth. So again, that goes back to, both were cesarean births, but the experiences were night and day.
Yeah.
So with my third baby, I was determined to have a VBAC, and I interviewed every provider in town, I'm pretty sure. And
where do you live?
That was in Texas.
Okay.
We live in Arizona now. And so, long story short, there was a lot of change of providers, and at 43 weeks, 6 days, I birthed my baby.
Wow.
And ended up being in the hospital. It was supposed to be a home birth, but my midwife dropped me from care at 42 weeks. So that ended up being a hospital birth, and it was
43 weeks, 6 days.
Yes.
Wow,
yes.
Mama.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure my body held my baby in because I didn't feel safe birthing anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm already, my normal is 42 and a half weeks or so. So yeah, for about a little over another week, my body was like, nope, not safe, not happening.
We're not coming out.
Nope, wasn't getting in the right position, nothing. And that with that birth experience, an epidural ended up helping me not have a third cesarean birth.
Yeah.
Because I was able to get out of the way and then let my body and baby do what it needed to do. So I birthed, but it was not a good experience in the hospital. The postpartum care in the hospital was very traumatic. And I finished that birth feeling incredibly frustrated because I fought for 10 months, to have back. And I ended up being very traumatized from the experience due to the care of the midwife on call. And so by the time we were pregnant with our fourth baby, I didn't want anyone to touch me, come near me. I felt that my options were just being taken away from me because I was a plus size post-date VBAC birthing mama. And so everyone was telling me I can't. And I'm standing there like, I know I can. And so a birth without fear is not just about working through your own fears, but not allowing other people's fears into that birth space. That was a big one for me.
Yeah.
So I had an unassisted birth with my fourth. Wow. And it's interesting because I don't talk about it a lot. I support all birth choices, but that is an incredibly big personal decision. And I don't feel it's the answer. I don't, like I said, I don't regret any of my birth experiences, but no woman should feel that she's backed into a corner with no options.
Right.
When a hospital bans VBACs, I'm just like, what? You just took options away. If you feel it's safest for women to birth in the hospital, you just took an option away from them, and you're getting more of what you don't want, actually. Right. So, and that's how I felt. I felt I was backed into a corner, and my only option was just, I'm going to do this myself. And it was an incredibly beautiful healing birth experience. It was incredible for myself and my husband. My fifth was a home birth as well. And then my sixth was, I had planned a home birth, and I also hired an OB because my instincts told me to. And I don't usually hire OBs, but I do listen to my instincts. Yeah. So Sure enough, at 43 weeks, I was still pregnant, and I woke up that morning and knew that she needed to come earthside that day. So I talked to my midwives. I talked to my OB. It was a Sunday morning. We met in his office. We discussed all of our options, and I chose a cesarean birth for my last baby. It really came full circle. So I've had many different kinds of experiences, and if anyone wants to listen to them in full, my first 4 birth stories are on the Birth Hour podcast, and my last 2 are on my podcast, the Harshe podcast. So I do tell those more in detail on those, but they're all completely different experiences depending where I lived, who I was around, that baby, what my body was doing, what that baby was doing, what my options were. I have found myself having more options living in some states than others, like that. So we need more options. We just, we need more support. The moment you start taking them away, that's when we're going to have more traumatic births. We're going to have more unsafe birth,
Right.
And we don't want that. We want all of us, especially the mom, we want to have a mentally and physically safe birth for ourselves and for our babies. So, we need those options and we need that support.
Yeah. Right. So over Christmas break, Vito and I were in Texas hanging out with my family, and my mom was showing him all of my show choir videos, and he said he was getting tired of watching them, but I was not. I was a very hardcore show choir girl in high school. All 4 years I did competitive, and then I also did musicals. But the thing is, all of those videos are on several different tapes. And then I found out about Legacy Box. And I wanted to put it together for my mom because she has my sister's, mine, all of our stuff kind of scattered all over. And the cool thing about it is that you can gather all of your home movies and photos or any of that, and you put it in a box and you send it in to Legacy Box. The reason why most people are motivated and excited to digitize their old analog formats with Legacy Box is because you get to save your family's films and photos from degrading or being lost forever. And then one day you're not even going to be able to play it back. And that's so sad. But you can become the family hero and bring back lost memories to watch and see again. You can send your Legacy Box filled with the old home movies and pictures. They'll do the rest, professionally digitizing your moments onto a thumb drive, digital download, or a DVD. Legacy Box is the world's largest, most trusted digitizer of home movies and photos. They have over a decade of experience, and all of their work is done by hand. There's never been a better time to digitally preserve your memories. Visit legacybox.com today to get started. Plus, for a limited time, they're offering my listeners an exclusive discount. Go to legacybox.com/babes to get 40% off your first order. Go to legacybox.com/babes and save 40% today. Get started preserving your past. When I started, first of all, your story is incredible. It did really come full circle. And also the fact that you were just so in tune with your body and listening to, this doesn't feel right. Because I feel like sometimes we feel we have to do it a certain way or we have to whatever. But I mean, if your instinct is telling you differently, absolutely listen to that.
Absolutely. Give yourself permission to change your mind.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay, I don't want an epidural. Awesome. Let's support you in that. You get into it and that baby's position is off and you guys have done everything you can to move baby. And you're like, these contractions are hurting. They're on top of each other. This isn't working out. I have to have an epidural. Just give me an epidural. And if that's what you really want, great. Let's get you
right.
There's no reason to make anyone who's bringing a human being earthside feel any guilt at all with any decisions or changing your mind. You are allowed to change your mind.
Right.
At any point in the process.
Yeah. Well, when you're saying you got the epidural and it just kind of let you get out of your own way, that's something I've noticed in a lot of births is when the mama just really isn't letting herself relax and let her body move. A lot of times then you give them the epidural and they dilate and it works great.
Yeah.
And I think giving yourself permission to change your mind is such amazing advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, if we can do that in our pregnancies and our births, we can extend that into postpartum and motherhood.
Right.
Right. Because we will change our minds so many times in motherhood. Like, with my first, I was like, I'll never work. My child won't be on electronics. All this stuff, this stuff. And now I'm like, and in my 20s, I was really judgy. I was judgy. Like, to anybody who was friends with me before I turned like 38, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
I mean, every hard experience I've had in my life, I'm grateful for, because each one humbles me more and more. And the more we can learn and grow and be humbled from these experiences, the more we can be more compassionate to other people. And so I've always been grateful all of my birth experiences were the way they were, that they weren't easy or simple, or, because I would have never started birth without fear. I would have never, I would have been really judgy. And when I was in my 20s, I was around women like that. And I'm like, I'm really glad that I have had these hard experiences so it can teach me to be more compassionate. So,
yeah, absolutely. I'm actually getting married next week. So
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm so excited. But we talk a lot about parenting and how we want to do it. But then we are always like, you know what, we can say whatever we want now, but until we have kids, and like his siblings are like, we can't wait for you to have kids so we can like tell you all the things you're doing wrong.
Oh my goodness. You know what? It's almost like kind of like having birth preferences. We need to have like parenthood preferences,
right?
Or philosophy, because all the little details are going to change. Like, I know that no matter what, the number one thing for me as a mother is to break some cycles in my family, right? Like, there's certain cycles I want to break that no one else has in multiple generations. And so for me, in 15 years, that's never changed. How I go about on a day-to-day basis doing that might change, right? And so going into parenthood with more of a philosophy and what's important to you, but then being really flexible on things changing, because it's going to be different when you go from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, or, the different ages of those children, it's going to change. And every time you have a child, you have to take all your expectations and put them in a pretty little ball and put them out the window, right out the window.
Right.
And never say lower your expectations, but shift your expectations.
Yeah. Well, the one thing that I saw that I absolutely love too is the hashtag cesarean birth is birth.
Yes. And that started because a couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure I posted something, and, people will say that it's not birth.
Right.
Really? Because a baby was born. So, so I started saying, hashtag cesarean birth is birth, because that's rude. First of all, it's really rude. But I've had both birth experiences, and they have all been birth, and with my sixth baby, real quick, when my doctor was doing the surgery, when they got down to baby, when they got down to baby, I felt her shoot up my womb.
Oh man.
And kicking really, really high. Like, she was like, nope, I don't want to come out to the light. No, and I was laying there, because you're numb chest down a cesarean birth, which is kind of scary in itself. But you still feel a lot of pressure and movement and tugging and things like that. At least I did. And so, and the higher up, the little more feeling I have towards my chest. And so when she shot up, I felt her at the top part of my, my belly, by my diaphragm. And when they got her and started pulling her out, I felt the pressure change and the descent of her coming out of my womb.
Yeah.
And I was laying there thinking, I just birthed my baby.
Yeah.
I just birthed my baby. Did I have help? Yeah, but most of us do. No matter what kind of birth you have help. And so it was a really, really neat experience to just make that connection with my sixth. And it is birth. Cesarean birth is birth. And it's not the easy way out. It is not simple. Who wants to have major abdominal surgery? And people are put under general anesthesia for much smaller surgeries. And we are laying there awake because we want to be present, most of the time, right? For this this birth of our child. And I mean, it's incredible what you go through to have a cesarean birth. It is vulnerable. There is a transition where you're like, I can't do this. When they're shaving you and giving you an epidural, there is a transitional period. You're like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And you need somebody there, whether it's your partner or your care provider or a doula, to be like, you are doing great. You are doing just right. And then you have assistance. You are birthing your baby and bringing your baby into the world. So it is very much birth, and it is a warrior's birth. You know, you have this new baby to take care of, your milk coming in, and you're healing from a very intense surgery. That is something to be incredibly proud of.
Yeah, that was so beautifully put. All right, guys, did you know that it has been reported that Americans are overpaying on car insurance by over $21 billion? That's billion. But searching for a better deal can take hours and typically results in a barrage of unwanted spam calls. Oh, I hate those spam calls. Until now, thanks to thezebra.com. TheZebra.com is the nation's leading car insurance comparison site because it's the only place where you can compare hundreds of policies from all the top carriers and choose the best for you. They will never sell your information to spammers, thankfully. And the Zebra is kayak for auto insurance. Compare car insurance quotes from all of the top providers all at once. Go today and start saving at thezebra.com/babes. That's thezebra.com/babes, spelled THEZEBRA.com/babes. I can't tell you like how many times I've just talked to women who feel so guilty or so incapable because they ended up having a C-section.
Yeah, and don't you just want to hold them and like, you're even more capable. Look what you did. Like you human and you went through surgery and you healed and survived that surgery. Like, I can't believe I've gone through 3 major abdominal surgeries and had newborns and toddlers to take care of. Like, are you kidding me right now? If I can do that, then I can handle taxes.
Right. No, exactly.
You know, I can handle whatever else comes my way. And of course, I felt that way after my healing, empowering home births, but I feel that way after my cesarean births too, you know? And again, it goes back to how you're treated through the process. You know, I'm going to feel that way more if I had options and I was treated with support and respect. If I wasn't treated that way, then no, I'm not going to feel that empowerment. You are going to talk to women and moms who feel that, you know, they didn't accomplish much because they didn't have anyone telling them how freaking badass they are for what they just did and what they just went through. So it makes a big difference.
Which is such an importance, though, with the community that you have, too, is that, I mean, on all these different platforms, you have people under those umbrellas who are empowering and sharing that message. And you don't feel like it doesn't feel exclusive. It's such an inclusive community. So, because a lot of those movements now that I realize, too, it is more trying to push for the more natural things and this and that. And that's not everybody's way. And so it's so cool that your community is just so inclusive of whatever birth you've gone through. Like, we're here for you, and whatever you choose to do, you know, you're still a mom and we're in this parenting thing together. We're in this recovery thing together, whatever it is, you know?
Absolutely. I think the first year I started Birth Without Fear, I was a little more on my soapbox because I started it after my 4th very healing birth. So I definitely was on my soapbox and I had some growing pains. And then I changed my voice and my message to be more inclusive. And that's really when people, and I still got a hard time from both camps, people that everyone should have a natural childbirth and people who, you know, think natural childbirth is dangerous or whatever. And then I'm not here for those people right now. You know, I'm here for everyone else who just wants to know what their options are, wants to educate themselves, and wants to be supported and loved through their journey and through this process. So it became a lot bigger during that time because there wasn't a lot of that inclusivity. There was just a lot of fighting,
right?
You know, so I don't know anything about now. I keep to what I'm sharing and posting. I don't really know what anyone else is doing because I'm busy enough. But I do feel, you know, when I first ran Birth Without Fear, it was really kind of a pioneer in that message, I guess, you know, I would say. And I think on a personal note, my ego was a little more involved in it for a while. And the last few years, I've had a lot of growth and letting go of my ego. And I feel like the more platforms and the more voices, the better. Like, I think that we all need to be using our voices and shifting expectations and changing the conversation. And if you find one movement or page or group of people and that just doesn't resonate with you, what's so great is now, unlike 15 years ago, there's 100 other pages or movements or groups that you can find, and you can find, that support that you need. And social media has plenty of drawbacks, but we're so, so blessed to have that right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I feel like it's so refreshing talking to you, because I feel like I try not to be judgmental, in a lot of things, and that the education part is so important. But I feel like even sometimes when I'm trying to just spread education, then people think you're trying to like preach. And it's like, no, I just want you to know all of your options to make the best one for yourself. And to know that even if it doesn't go that way, like, you're going to get through this, you're going to be okay, And
I put disclaimers on a lot of things.
Yeah.
For that reason,
Mm-hmm.
Like me sharing one person's birth story is not a judgment of your birth story.
Right.
I'm sharing about the high rate of cesarean birth, especially unwanted cesarean birth, and sharing about VBACs is not a judgment on your choice to have a cesarean birth. Like, we can hold space for all of it here. And if this post or this conversation doesn't apply to you, that's totally okay. There's plenty of others here that do. So take what you need from this space and let the rest go for whoever else needs it. So sometimes you do have to put those disclaimers up, because this is an incredibly personal, emotional thing to discuss, pregnancy and birth. And there are so many emotions that come up when any of us see a birth photo, for example, or a breastfeeding photo or a postpartum photo. And the first thing most of us do in our human brains is we see that photo, we internalize it within a millisecond, and we make it about us. And then with social media, there's no filter. So boom, you react and you comment. And so it's good to remind people that, hey, this is not a judgment of your experience. And it's also good if we can be a little more mindful of, okay, that makes me feel this way, but this has nothing to do with that person or this experience. So I don't need to react to it. And sometimes I help people by turning off comments.
Yeah.
But it's okay to share all of it. So when you're sharing that education, there's nothing wrong with just putting a little disclaimer, like, hey, just want to share this for people that need it. It's not a judgment on anyone else who makes a different choice. Love ya.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good idea, because I've known that I've definitely held back with some of that stuff, because I don't want someone to feel bad because that,
Yeah. Don't hold back on it because there's somebody else that needs that information. It's all about how you share it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about your delivery, and I've done it all different ways. I used to be a lot more dramatic than I am now, but I've noticed that the more we share our messages with like just love, and it's okay to be bold. Like in my Birth Without Fear book, the VBAC chapter, I get very feisty because most of us find ourselves truly having to fight for those options to vaginal birth after cesarean. So it's okay to do that, but just kind of how we deliver those messages will help in how people accept them. Now how they internalize it that's their journey. That's up to them. But yeah, I think you should definitely share more.
Yeah.
Share more. Yeah, absolutely.
I know. I want to. I get very hyped up though sometimes, and then I have to like let myself cool down before I share something. Like when I learn a new statistic about something, I'm like, why is this happening? And then I'm like, I can't just like go post it or talk about it, because otherwise I know it's not going to come across.
You have to internalize it. Right? Like you have to internalize it and then ask yourself, like, what is the message I want to put out there about that? And how will it be received? And, am I adding to the conversation of change or just a collective mob angry conversation?
Right. No, absolutely.
The angry mob conversation is not going to actually bring forth long-term change.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm going to take a minute to tell you guys about one of our awesome sponsors, and that is Open Fit. They are bringing you something new that makes it even easier to get fit if that is one of your goals. And it's brand new, super easy streaming service that allows you to work out from the comfort of your living room in as little as 10 minutes a day. If you have 10 minutes to spare, this is the workout for you. And everybody's bodies are different, and OpenFit gets that, which is why it will personalize to your needs and with custom tailored original content. They have amazing trainers and classes. It's super simple to use. You can access it anywhere and anytime. So you don't have to feel bad anymore if you don't have time to fit out a workout. I know everybody's goals are different, and that's why this app is so cool. OpenFit has changed the way that I work out, and with my code BABES, you can join me on the fitness journey, and you personalize it just for you. Again, use my code BABES and start using OpenFit for your journey to a healthier life. Right now, during the OpenFit 30-day challenge, the listeners get a special extended 30-day free trial membership to OpenFit, where you can lose up to 15 pounds in 30 days. When you text BABES to 303030, you will get full access to OpenFit, all the workouts and nutrition information, totally free. Again, text BABES to 303030 if you are looking for a great way to work out from home. So you posted something the other day that I really resonated with, and my fiance was like, Liz, you need to do this. And it was self-care. If you don't know where to begin, start by buying underwear that aren't period panties. I cannot tell you the last time I bought new underwear.
I know. It's amazing how much we don't take care of ourselves in the most simple ways.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that funny?
Oh my gosh, I loved that so much.
It's so true. And I think it's just a good, funny way to then sit back and think, what else am I like not doing that's basic?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I even have any walking shoes? If you can afford them, like get them, or we don't hesitate as like parents to buy our kids shoes that fit or underwear that fits, but then we feel guilty over doing that for ourselves. And yeah, there's times where I just didn't have the money to do that. But if I do, then do it now. Why I do. But yeah, self-care is an interesting, tricky thing. I love social media and I love the movements, but sometimes I feel like there's parts of the conversations that's missed, like most self-care is going to be really hard. Yeah. It's like that personal growth. It's that making yourself get up and take a shower when you're depressed and show up for your daily life. It's, changing the way you eat when you don't want to eat or things like that. Like most self-care, honestly, is not Instagrammable. It's not like, oh, look, I went for my spa day or my brunch with my girlfriends. That's awesome. That's self-care too. But for most of us, it's that daily showing up, that daily work, growth, change, buying new underwear, like those kinds of things. And, we have to show up for ourselves, and we have to do that, especially for those of you that are listening that are parents. We're the keystone of our family. Yeah. We'll love and defend and take care of our family fiercely, and we forget that we are part of our family too, a very important part of our family, and we're not nurturing and caring for that really important piece and person in our family that is us. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself. It's actually quite selfish to be a martyr, in my opinion. Because that doesn't serve anyone. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like if you're being a martyr, it's like, why? What is that serving you? Because it's not serving anyone else. It's actually, it's necessary to take care of yourself. It's not selfish. It's necessary because the burnout is going to happen one way or another at some point. So I would prefer if moms, dads, humans, if you're not a parent yet, that we take care of ourselves before we hit that rock bottom, before we hit that burnout, it's like we feel like we need an excuse, especially women, to take care of ourselves. Like, right. I don't know about you. I don't know about your husband, but I don't know what does he like to do? My husband likes to work out, play guitar. Like, he's not like, oh, I need to get in an accident so I don't have to work so I can take care of myself.
Right. Right.
It's like, have you ever seen the movie Bad Moms?
Yes. Yes.
She's talking about her fantasy in the bar.
Oh my gosh.
Wish I could get in an accident and go to the hospital just for like a week or two. How many of us have thought that? Yeah. Like, we feel we need some wild, harmful thing to happen for us to even be able to take a bath or to, push the easy button on mealtime or to, you know, buy new underwear. So it's really, really important to do the thing. I know a mom who was allergic to something and she needed an EpiPen, and she like just wasn't making the appointment to do it for herself. I'm like, if that was your kid,
right.
She's like, I would have done it the next day that we had this reaction. I'm like, but you,
right.
like, you're not, you know, I'm pretty sure your family doesn't want you to die. So
right.
if you could please just make the appointment and go get yourself the EpiPen so you have it. And it's like, so we have to step back and change that perspective because we get stuck in our own heads. So once you step back and you're like, if this is my kid, would I have already taken care of this? Would I have already helped them through this? Right. And then if I'm really having a hard time, like in the past with like guilt about self-care, I'm like, would my husband feel guilty about taking a bath or
right.
going out with a friend to a movie? No, not at all. You know, so hopefully those little tips help someone listen.
No, that's such an important message. And, but that also brings me to the other thing when you're mentioning your husband, you also have the movement, don't forget dads.
Yeah. Don't forget dads. That was also a hashtag I did one day. I shared on a picture on Birth Without Fear, and I'm pretty sure it was, you know, where the dad was showing really intense emotions in the birth photo. And I did hashtag don't forget dads. And somebody said, that's a really good hashtag. And I said, you're right. And so I went and started the page.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because I've noticed something similar with Birth Without Fear. Since I started Don't Forget Dads, there's so many more movements that have started for dad fatherhood. And I love it. I love it. I love it because it's really hard to pull dads into the conversation sometimes. I don't know if you've experienced that with the birth work that you do, but the first year of running Don't Forget Dads, people think Brandon must run it, but it's not true. I do. The first year running it, it was only women, spouses, tagging us in photos. It took a full year of running it before men, dads, started tagging us and sharing photos. So, you know, really took, you know, it took a woman like starting this Don't Forget Dads movement and being consistent with it for a year, you know, but I think that the conversation surrounding fatherhood and dads is still very new.
Yeah.
Even more so than our conversations we started about birth and postpartum.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, there's such that toxic masculinity in our society. And it's like, they just rather not talk about it or just talk to their spouse or their wife, you know? And so it's an interesting, you know, when I post photos of a dad with a new baby, they do great. But, you know, I want to open up the conversations more about just dads in general and older kids, you know, and those kind of things. And it almost feels like that people are not quite ready for that conversation.
Yeah.
So we'll just keep pushing along, but it's a really important conversation to have. And there is a little bit of pushback on that because dads do something cute and sweet. And there are women who make a good point of, we do this every day.
Right.
We do this all the time. Why are they getting recognition? So again, with everything else, we need to kind of make space for both sides of that conversation.
Right. Well, I feel like a part of it is whenever anything's been suppressed, there's like a huge backlash. So that right now is kind of that time of women being like, we've gone so long without being heard, you know,
Absolutely.
and, like, so we want our voices to be heard right now, but a huge part of that is the men too. And I remember hearing a conversation once and it just really spoke to me because I definitely feel like in a lot of ways I am a feminist, but this lady said, if by me being a feminist is downplaying your masculinity, then I'm also not doing my job. Like if me being, that's not how she said it, but it was like something like she said, if me being a feminist is stripping away your masculinity, I'm not doing my job either. You know, cause it's like, we can't like talk down on all men, you know what I mean, for this. Right. It's helping us be the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah. The feminism isn't about tearing any group of people down. It's about lifting us all up on the same level.
Right.
And in the same, you know, way. And so, yeah, it's interesting to have these conversations in the online space. Sometimes I'm like, what fight from Facebook did this person just come from? Because I don't know what they're talking about right now. Yeah, absolutely. So, but that is true. That is true. I mean, we could probably do a whole other podcast on feminism.
Right. Yeah. No, absolutely.
A whole other episode on that.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
But I love that, like, not forgetting about dads, because, I mean, every parents, you guys choose your own roles, what those are going to be for your family, and whatever team effort you have for that. But I mean, I don't see a lot about dads on Instagram or in the social media at all.
No, and I wanted more dads to see, I wanted to normalize things like skin to skin, or having a doula there to support you, support your partner, or, co-sleeping with your baby, or, I just wanted dads to see more, because if they're not having these conversations, then who's showing them the normalcy of these things?
Yeah.
We have to. So, the conversations that I had with my husband when I was pregnant with my first and second versus now are so different because I've educated him.
Right.
I think so many women feel the same way because, we are so passionate about this, and there are men that are too, but I think many of us have partners or spouses that are just like, yeah, whatever, it's just the way it's always been done, or that kind of thing. It's like, well, that's not an acceptable answer. The way it's always been done is actually a very harmful answer. So we're going to actually dig into this and see, what's really best for us, our baby, our family. Because so many of us do not listen to that intuition because we're so worried about what other people are going to think.
Right. Yeah.
We're so worried, like what people are going to say about me choosing to co-sleep or not co-sleep, or me choosing to pick this car seat over that car seat, or, us being married or not married. Like we care so much about other people's opinions that it keeps us from just listening to our basic, beautiful, magical instincts. So I wanted to show a little bit more of that on Don't Forget Dads. Like, look, if this guy is holding his baby skin to skin, why can't you? Just kind of plant those seeds.
Yeah. Well, and I think that that's so important because a lot of times the bond for fathers with their baby isn't as instantaneously as it is with women, or it's a different kind of bond. I remember one of my sisters, she has 4 kids, and she and her husband have a great relationship, and she was talking to me about him, and she was like, yeah, the first time, with our first kid, it was hard for him because he didn't feel, obviously he loved him so much. He loved our son so much, but that instantaneous bond, like, wasn't there for him. He's like, I love him so much, but I just feel like I can't, you're the one feeding him all the time. You're the one doing this. And then once, like, he started walking and talking, like, it was so much more fun. But then with the babies after, then the bond was came easier because he knew what to expect,
Right. Absolutely. I think that's pretty common. I know my husband has talked about that too. He's like, until they're like interacting and I can play with them, he's like, he's always said his focus is more on just helping me and supporting me because, of course he'll feed the baby if if that baby will take a bottle, or he'll, burp them or get up with them or take care of the other kids that can be with the baby. But until the baby is actually really, because think about that, like the baby's been in our body, kicking in our body, feeding from us, and your partner hasn't had that part of the experience as deeply as you.
Right.
And so, you had 9 months of that. And so it's almost like your partner or spouse needs about 9 months of that with their baby.
That makes sense.
Right? Right?
Yeah.
So they have that connections and those interactions and the touching and the kicking and the playing and the giggling and all that stuff. And, to build up the bond that you've already been growing for so long, being one with your baby.
Right.
So
yeah.
Absolutely.
I just want to touch on real quick too, because you have Mothering Without Fear.
Right. Yeah. Gosh, you're exhausting me bringing up all my accounts. Sometimes I'm like, why do I have all these accounts? Oh my God.
Because they're all very needed and important. So
yeah. Well, Mothering Without Fear was actually Breastfeed Without Fear for a long time. I had started a Breastfeed Without Fear movement years ago when we were really trying to normalize breastfeeding more. And I think we'll always have to work on normalizing breastfeeding. But over the years, my experiences and journey and voice and passions have changed. And so I wanted a space where it was, again, more inclusive. And I didn't want to do Feed Without Fear. I wanted to talk about mothering without fear because we have the Don't Forget Dads. We have the postpartum. So what about after the postpartum? And, we're talking about Don't Forget Dads. So I changed it to Mothering Without Fear to start sharing more of that conversation of what we go through with motherhood past the postpartum. And postpartum is not 6 weeks. I feel my postpartums are minimum 18 months. But then what about after that? You know, what about when your kids are toddlers and preschoolers and in school and teenagers and puberty? And so that's, yeah, I'm actually right now currently working on nurturing that Instagram and that movement. So working on the voice there.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So your Birth Without Fear book comes out when?
March 5th.
March 5th. I'm writing it down.
Yes, you can get it. You can pre-order it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, on their website. You can also just go to harshe.blog or birthwithoutfearblog.com. And we have all the buttons there on where to pre-order it as well. And right now, we are doing short daily podcasts on the Harshe podcast where you read a few sentences from each chapter and discuss it for a few minutes. So I don't know if I'll ever do daily podcasts again, but but it's been really, really cool. I mean, I turned this manuscript in December 2017.
Oh, wow. So,
okay. Yeah. The publishing world is still its own world.
Yeah.
You know, so we got the book deal 2 years ago in March, and we turned the manuscript in December 2017. So it's been really neat for me to read and discuss from it on our podcast. It's been really, really fun. So, yeah.
And then you also have the Birth Without Fear conferences.
Yeah, so we're doing some events between March and June in US, Canada, and Australia.
Yeah.
And you can check out those cities and details at bwfconference.com. And then we might be adding a few bookstores and book signings along the way. So
yeah, I was telling, that's so cool. I was telling my fiance, I was like, Vito, she's doing a conference in Australia. I have to go. I got to go to it. But then I saw you were doing them in the US, and I was like, oh, that's probably more affordable.
You're more than welcome to come with me. I would love the company. It's a very long flight. I just did last year, and it was really, really long, but it was such a beautiful experience. Yeah. So I wanted to go back, and I'm going to Perth, Melbourne, and Brisbane this time.
That's so amazing.
I know, it's wild, right? It's wild. Where are you based out of?
I'm currently in Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the closest I'm getting to you is probably Madison, maybe?
Yeah, that's not far.
Madison,
Wisconsin?
That might be the closest I'm going to be to you this year. So that's a little closer than Australia.
A little bit, I know. Well, just with the wedding next week, and then we're actually going to go to Thailand for 3 weeks for our honeymoon.
Neat.
Yeah,
that's so wonderful.
We're really excited, but we also, I probably can't afford another plane ticket overseas. So
next time.
Yeah, next time. But no, I'll definitely look out for that. If I'm around for that Madison one, I'll definitely go to it.
Yeah, that's going to be neat. I love connecting with people face to face. It's probably what's kept me going this long with the social media.
Yeah.
Part of it is that I meet people face to face and hear their stories and connect with them and hug them, and like, okay, I filled my cup and now I can keep dealing with social media.
Yeah, for sure.
It's been wonderful.
So for those of you listening, don't forget to follow her Birth Without Fear, Take Back Postpartum. Don't forget Dads, Mothering Without Fear. January Harshe, her podcast is the Harshe Podcast, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's everywhere.
And if you just want a place where you just know that you're not going to be judged and you can get education and information and just instantly have acceptance, definitely look into that community, the Birth Without Fear community, because it's awesome.
Thank you. So, I really appreciate it. This was fun. Thank you so much.
It was fun. So thank you so much for coming on, and I will leave all the information up on the page so people will know where to find you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right. January Harshe. She's just such a breath of fresh air and so amazing. And it's just so nice talking to women who have that inclusive mindset of creating that space and recognizing every person's journey to where they are and through their birth and into motherhood. So I'm just so grateful that she was able to come on today. She's somebody who I feel like I just kind of want to be her best friend. So I'm probably going to start stalking her. It's no big deal. Just kidding, January. I won't do that. But yeah, guys, for real, don't forget to check out the Birth Without Fear. Her book is coming out soon. I know that I'm going to be getting a copy. I feel like it's something that will just add value to me as a doula and then entering motherhood when I decide to do that. So if you guys want to get a copy, I'll also put a link up for that as well. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope everyone could take something away from this. Don't forget to share this podcast. I know that we covered a lot of information and that there was probably something in there for everyone. So don't forget to share this podcast, rate it. And yeah, we will talk to you next week. Next week, we are going to be having on Danielle Maltby, and Lisa is going to be on sharing an amazing birth story with us. It's Lisa Fortenbaugh, and she has an incredible story about her daughter with dealing with congenital heart defect. And it's a very important story, but Danielle is going to be co-hosting with me, and we just have an awesome episode for you guys. So we will see you next week.
This podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Babes and Babies, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.